Let's be real for a second. How many times have you told yourself, if I just had more money, everything would be different? You'd travel more, quit that job you hate, move out of that cramped apartment, maybe even finally breathe. A little. Sounds familiar, right? This is one of the most seductive beliefs in America, that more money equals more freedom. It's the foundation of the grind culture, the side hustle movement, the rise and grind mentality that tells you the only thing standing between you and peace of mind is just a few more zeros in your bank account. But here's the thing, it's a lie. A beautiful, convincing, emotionally satisfying lie. Because if making more money actually guaranteed freedom, why do so many people who earn 6 or even 7 figures still feel stuck? Still feel stressed? Still live paycheck to paycheck, just with bigger paychecks? The truth is, your relationship with money doesn't automatically evolve just because your income does. And that's the part no one wants to talk about. Imagine this. You're driving a car with a speed limiter set to 60 mph. Doesn't matter if you slam the gas pedal, the engine won't let you go faster. That limiter? That's your money mindset. It's been programmed by years of beliefs, fears, and emotional associations around wealth. And unless you reprogram that, every time you try to go faster financially, you'll hit a wall. Let me introduce you to a guy named James. James started a marketing agency and within 3 years was making over $300K a year. From the outside, he looked like he made it. New car, penthouse apartment, all of it. But deep down, James never dealt with the guilt he felt about earning more than his parents ever did. He believed subconsciously that he didn't deserve that level of success. So he overspent, self-sabotaged, took reckless business risks. Within 2 years, he was back to square one. James didn't have an income problem. He had a deservingness problem. See, most people think they have a money problem, when what they really have is a belief problem. They've attached freedom to a number. But real freedom isn't a number. It's a mindset. Because here's what no one tells you. If you feel trapped making 50K, you might still feel trapped at 500K, just in a bigger cage. So ask yourself this, are you chasing money because you believe it'll free you? Or because deep down, you're afraid to face what's keeping you mentally locked up right now? That's the uncomfortable question, and answering it, that's where real freedom begins. Caracteres. Evite colocar tópicos. Faça texto o chat GPT. Look, if you grew up hearing that money doesn't grow on trees or rich people are selfish, it's no surprise you've got some emotional static around wealth. Those phrases don't just bounce off, they sink in. They become part of the software running quietly in the background of your financial decisions. And most of the time, you don't even realize it. We tend to think we're making logical choices about money, budgeting, saving, investing. But the truth is, most of your financial behavior is emotional before it's rational. And those emotions, they were shaped way before you ever got your first paycheck. Think about it. What did you see growing up? Did your parents fight about bills? Were you told things like, we can't afford that even when you didn't understand? Why? Did you notice that people with money were talked about with a certain edge, like they were lucky, corrupt, or disconnected from real life? That's where the seed gets planted. And from there, your brain starts forming associations. Money, cue tension. Success, cue guilt. Having more than others, cue danger. Even if no one ever said those exact words, the emotional tone was there. And kids don't need much. They pick up on everything. So by the time you're an adult, you might be doing everything right on paper. Working hard, saving a little, trying to get ahead. But there's an invisible leash pulling you back. You start to earn more, and suddenly you feel uncomfortable. Anxious, maybe even reckless. So what do? You unconsciously spend it, sabotage it, delay asking for that raise, say yes to things you can't afford. You're not broken. You're just running on programming you never chose. Here's something wild. Studies in behavioral psychology show that most people operate off money beliefs they absorbed before the age of 12. 12. That means if no one taught you how to rewrite those scripts, you're probably still making adult financial decisions with a child's emotional framework. And here's the kicker. This isn't about blaming your parents or your past. They were doing the best they could with what they knew. But just because you inherited their money mindset doesn't mean you have to keep it. It's like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small and wondering why walking through life feels painful. At some point, you have to realize this doesn't fit anymore. It never did. But you've worn it for so long, it feels normal. This is why money feels so personal. Because it is. It's not just about dollars. It's about identity, emotion, memory, and belief. That's why some people get a raise and feel more stressed. That's why others get rich and lose it all. Not because they're careless, but because their inner wiring still thinks they're supposed to be broke, stressed, or just getting by. You can't out-earn a mindset that says you're not safe with money. You can't outwork a belief that whispers, "This isn't for people like you." Until you look at where those beliefs came from, until you really feel the root, you'll keep repeating the same cycle. But awareness, that's where the pattern breaks, that's where the leash starts to loosen. And it's how you begin to take your power back, from the inside out. Here's the shift that changes everything. Money isn't the goal. Alignment is. Because if you don't feel safe, worthy, or capable of holding wealth, you won't keep it. That's not just spiritual fluff. It's psychological reality. People don't sabotage success because they're dumb. They do it because on a deep, unconscious level, success feels like a threat. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you finally land the job you've always wanted. The salary is double what you used to make. Your friends say you're killing it. Your family is proud. But inside, you feel off, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You start second-guessing yourself. You downplay your wins. You overspend just to numb the pressure. And before you know it, you're in the same financial hole, just wearing nicer shoes. That's not coincidence. That's your internal thermostat doing exactly what it was wired to do. Keep you at the level of comfort you're used to, not the one you say you want. This is where the emotional twist kicks in. Most people think they're afraid of failure. But you know what's more common? Fear of success. Because success brings change, visibility, responsibility, new expectations. And that's scary, especially if no one ever showed you how to hold that kind of power. We don't talk about that enough. We praise the hustle, the grind, the ambition, but we ignore the identity crisis that can come with leveling up. You start making more than your friends, and now you feel guilty hanging out. You want to invest, but your family says you're becoming too money-focused. You think about building wealth, but a voice in your head says, "Don't forget where you came from." That voice, it's not trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you, but it's protecting an outdated version of you. One that's comfortable with struggle. One that's accepted scarcity as normal. So here's your turning point. Instead of trying to work harder to outrun your beliefs, what if you aligned your beliefs with the life you're trying to build? Start with one core truth. Money is just a tool. It's not a judgment. It's not your worth. It's not a reflection of your soul. And if it's just a tool, then you get to decide how to use it and how much you're ready to hold. Here's a practical step. Write down every belief you have about money. Not the polished ones, the real ones, the ones you're ashamed to admit, like, "I'm not good with money," or "People will judge me if I succeed," or "I'll lose myself if I get rich." Then ask, where did that come from? Is it even mine? That's where the reprogramming begins. Not by repeating cheesy affirmations in the mirror, though, hey, do your thing, but by actually questioning the script, flipping the narrative, reclaiming the pen. Because the truth is, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your beliefs. And until those beliefs are aligned with wealth, abundance, and freedom, no amount of hustle will keep you there. So, if you're ready to stop chasing and start becoming, it starts with this shift. It starts by realizing you were never afraid of being broke. You were afraid of who you'd have to become to stay rich. Imagine two people starting from the same point, same city, same income, even the same debt. Let's call them Sarah and Mike. Both make $75,000 a year. Both dream of getting out of the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. But 5 years later, their lives look completely different. Sarah owns her home, has investments growing in the background, and a sense of calm you can feel when she walks into a room. Mike, he's making even more now, $110,000, but he's drowning in credit card debt, constantly stressed and still living like everything could collapse at any moment. So what happened? Here's the surprising part. Mike didn't mess up because he was irresponsible. In fact, he worked his ass off, took promotions, picked up side gigs, but the moment he started making more money, he started spending like he had something to prove. New car, designer shoes, lavish weekends. Not because he needed it, but because deep down he still felt like the broke kid trying to prove he belonged. Sarah, on the other hand, made one core decision early on. She wasn't going to let her past define how she used money. Instead of asking, "What can I buy now that I'm earning more?" she asked, "What kind of life do I want to build long term?" She didn't see money as a reward. She saw it as a tool. That shift made all the difference. Mike and Sarah are living proof that success isn't about how much you make. It's about how you manage who you become when the money shows up. Because here's what no one tells you. Getting rich and staying rich are two completely different skill sets. One requires hustle. The other requires emotional intelligence, discipline, self-awareness, and most importantly, a new identity. Mike's identity was still tied to lack, to proving himself, to escaping shame. So no matter how much he made, his subconscious kept pushing him to spend, to sabotage, to stay in the chaos he knew. It felt familiar, safe even, because calm, wealth, and ease, that felt foreign, and we always return to what feels familiar, not what feels better. That's the trap. And it's more common than you think. Sarah broke that cycle not because she was smarter, but because she got intentional. She confronted her beliefs. She asked deeper questions. She stopped reacting to money emotionally and started using it strategically. And that's the emotional pivot most people never make. We're trained to chase higher income, to flex, to upgrade. But very few of us are taught to sit with money, to understand our patterns, to pause before reacting, to plan with vision instead of emotion. If you don't take control of your inner narrative, you'll end up like Mike, chasing numbers, but never feeling secure. Because the numbers don't create peace. Your relationship with the numbers does. That's why it's not about budgeting apps or investment tips. Not at first. It's about rewiring the internal system that dictates what you do with your money when no one's watching. So the next time you find yourself getting a raise or landing a big deal, pause. Ask yourself, who do I want to become with this increase? Not just what you want to buy, who you want to be. Because in the long run, your identity will spend your income. And if that identity is rooted in fear, guilt, or survival, no amount will ever be enough. You ever wonder why some people make a ton of money but still feel like frauds? Like no matter what they accomplish, there's this nagging voice in the back of their mind whispering, "You're not really that person." That's not just insecurity, that's identity friction. It's the emotional dissonance between the person you've always believed yourself to be and the version of you that's starting to emerge. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are loyal to an outdated version of themselves. They don't even realize it. They're out here chasing abundance with the mindset of someone who still believes they don't deserve much. It's like trying to install a new operating system on a phone that's stuck in 2010. It just won't run the new software properly. And money? It's one of the fastest ways to expose that misalignment. See, if you grew up internalizing the idea that people like you don't get rich, that financial success is for them, the lucky ones, the connected ones, the Ivy League crowd, then even when you start leveling up, part of you is still looking around waiting to be exposed. Like success is a costume you put on, but at any minute someone's gonna rip off the mask and say, "Aha, caught you. Go back to where you belong." That belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it doesn't matter how much you earn. or achieve. If your core identity still thinks you're the broke one or the scrappy underdog, you'll subconsciously do what it takes to return to that familiar role, because familiarity feels safe. Even when it's painful, let's break this down. When your identity says, "I'm just bad with money," guess what happens? You make careless financial choices, not because you're stupid, but because your behavior is trying to stay consistent with your self-image. When your identity says, "I'm not one of those rich, greedy people," you'll reject opportunities that look like too much. You'll keep yourself small so you can stay morally clean in your own mind. When your identity says, "I've never had much and I turned out fine," you'll avoid wealth out of pride, like having more would somehow erase your character or make you soft. And here's the wild part. Most of this isn't conscious. It's running in the background like autopilot, until you stop and ask, who do I believe I am when it comes to money? Because the truth is, you can't create a wealthy life with a broke identity. The two will always clash. And when they do, the identity wins. Every time. That's why this work isn't just about learning new financial strategies. It's about shedding old layers, breaking up with the version of you that got comfortable with chaos, scarcity, and survival mode. That version served a purpose. It helped you get through hard seasons, but it can't take you where you're trying to go now. So if you're serious about transformation, you've got to let go of the identity that's tied to lack. The one that flinches when things get good. The one that sabotages when things get stable. That version of you was necessary, but it's not your future. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to remember who you were before the world told you what was possible. Money doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you believe you are. And if you're ready to believe something new, the rest starts falling into place. Most people think fear only shows up when you're losing. But the truth is, fear has a sneaky way of showing up when things are finally going right. When the money starts flowing. When the pressure lifts. When life gets good. That's when the panic kicks in. Not because things are falling apart, but because your nervous system doesn't know what to do with peace. You've probably felt it before. You get a bonus, and instead of celebrating, you feel this weird discomfort in your chest, like, do I really deserve this? You land a client that pays more than you've ever made in a month, and your first thought isn't joy, it's suspicion. How long until this falls apart? That isn't just anxiety. That's your nervous system rejecting success because it doesn't recognize it as home. Here's the thing, no one tells you success doesn't always feel safe, especially if you've been wired for survival your whole life. If your brain is used to struggle, conflict, and scraping by, then calm, even abundance, feels like unfamiliar territory. And unfamiliar territory? That triggers your fight or flight response just like danger would. We say we want stability, freedom, overflow. But when it actually arrives, our body sometimes interprets it as a threat. Why? Because it's not what we know, and the brain would rather stay in predictable misery than step into uncertain joy. That's why so many people unconsciously create chaos the moment life starts getting better. Not because they're reckless, but because their internal compass is still pointed toward survival. And if you don't shift that compass, no amount of external success will ever feel like yours. This is what nobody tells you about generational patterns. If you come from a lineage where money was always tight, emotions were always high, and struggle was normalized, your definition of normal gets built on instability. So when you try to break the cycle, there's a part of you, deep, emotional, primal, that feels like you're betraying your roots. Like wealth means leaving people behind. Like peace means you no longer belong. So what do? You self-sabotage. You overspend. You undercharge. You avoid looking at your accounts. You push success away because it feels too unfamiliar, too exposed, too heavy. But here's the breakthrough. The fear isn't proof that you're not ready. The fear is a signal that you're reaching beyond your programming. It means you're entering a new frequency, and your system just needs time to catch up. This is why reprogramming your relationship with success is just as important as reprogramming your beliefs around failure. because otherwise, you'll keep equating more money with more stress, more visibility with more danger, and more abundance with more loneliness. But what if success could feel safe? What if calm could feel familiar? What if ease wasn't a trap, but your new normal? To get there, you've got to teach your body that it's okay to have more, that it's okay to hold wealth without guilt, that it's okay to grow beyond what your family, your culture, or your past said was possible. And that starts by recognizing that fear of success isn't weakness. It's just a sign that you're expanding. And like any kind of growth, it might be uncomfortable, but it's not a reason to go back. You've lived in survival long enough. It's time to let your nervous system learn what thriving feels like. Rewiring your money mindset isn't a weekend project. It's not a one-and-done motivational speech or a catchy quote on Instagram. It's deep, slow, intentional work. Because what you're really doing isn't just about changing your thoughts. It's about adjusting your internal thermostat to stop rejecting wealth and start holding it with confidence. Let's break this down. Think of your financial comfort zone like a literal thermostat. If your internal setting is stuck at 68 degrees, you might get a sudden burst of cash that pushes things up to 85. Maybe you land a new client, get a raise, or hit a big month in your business. But what happens next? Without even noticing, you start cooling things down. Maybe you spend impulsively. Maybe you forget to invoice a client. Maybe you just freeze, overwhelmed, paralyzed by the idea of having more than you're used. That's not you being lazy or irresponsible. That's your system pulling you back to the temperature it knows. It's not personal, it's programmed. So how do you change the setting? It starts by creating a new baseline, a new normal. Not through hype, but through daily grounded exposure to the mindset and behaviors you want to adopt. You have to teach your nervous system that wealth is safe, that calm isn't suspicious, that holding money doesn't mean something bad is about to happen. One of the most powerful ways to start this recalibration is through intentional identity work. That means asking better questions. Instead of, how do I make more money? Ask, who do I need to become to manage wealth with? Peace and clarity. Instead of, why do I always mess things up? Ask, what story am I still living out that no longer fits who I am? Your answers might surprise you. Maybe you've been operating from your 12-year-old self, the one who saw your parents fight about bills. Maybe you're still reacting like the 22-year-old who got burned by debt and decided, money's just not for me. Until you recognize the version of you that's running the show, you can't put a new one in charge. Next, start practicing nervous system wealth. Sounds weird, but stay with me. This means slowly exposing yourself to new financial levels without triggering panic. If $1,000 in savings feels safe but $10,000 makes you nervous, don't jump straight to 10. Work your way up. Let your body adjust to the feeling of having more and not rushing to get rid of it. And surround yourself with people who normalize what you're aiming for. Not flex culture, not fake abundance, but people who talk about money with ease, strategy, and emotional maturity. That's how you rewrite your internal scripts, through consistent lived experience of a different financial reality. And yes, tools help. Journaling, tracking your emotional reactions to money, practicing gratitude without guilt. But none of it matters if you're still clinging to the identity of someone who's just trying to get by. You're not that person anymore. It's time to stop living like you are. So here's the shift. Stop chasing financial highs and start building emotional capacity. Stop looking for more and start creating stability in what you already have. Because when your thermostat gets set to abundance, you won't have to force wealth anymore. You'll naturally rise to meet it and stay there. Most people think building wealth is about speed. The faster you make it, the more successful you are. The more you grind, the more you deserve. It's like we've been trained to believe that the journey to financial freedom is some kind of race, one with no finish line, just endless milestones that keep moving every time you hit one. But here's the truth nobody likes to admit. Wealth isn't built through intensity. It's built through stability. And that stability starts way before the bank account changes. It starts with your mindset. You've probably seen it. Someone hits it big. Big job, big deal, big win. And for a while, everything looks great. But a year later, they're right back where they started. Not because they lost the opportunity, but because they couldn't hold it. Because deep down, their inner world never caught up with their outer results. That's why this isn't just about making more. It's about creating a baseline of belief and behavior that doesn't shake every time life throws something at you. It's about building a money mindset that can weather seasons, not just shine in the highlight reel. See, when your internal thermostat is calibrated to scarcity, you treat every dollar like a lifeline. You obsess, you hoard, or you spend recklessly just to feel something. But when your thermostat is set to calm, clarity, and trust, everything shifts. You stop operating from fear. You stop making reactive decisions. You start creating from vision, not survival. And here's what's wild. That shift doesn't require some dramatic external change. You don't need to win the lottery or land a six-figure client tomorrow. You need to start thinking like someone who's already aligned with stability. That means budgeting not from lack, but from intention. Investing not out of desperation, but out of strategy. Saying no to things that pull you out of alignment, even if they're shiny on the outside. It's slow work, quiet work, but it's the kind of work that compounds. And just like compounding interest, small, consistent moves, rooted in emotional clarity, outperform short bursts of intensity every time. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do everything right. But you do have to be honest. Honest about your patterns, honest about your triggers, honest about the parts of you that still think chaos is normal and calm is suspicious. Because if you don't build stability internally, you'll keep finding ways to disrupt it externally. That's why people who win big and lose fast often repeat that cycle for decades. Not because they're cursed, but because their foundation was shaky. Their relationship with money was still transactional, not transformational. They didn't trust themselves to hold it. And when you don't trust yourself, your wealth will reflect that. So what's the real flex? It's not the car, not the house, not the income report. It's being able to sit with money, without fear, without shame, without urgency, and feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. That's what real wealth feels like. And once your mindset is set to that level, no external loss can take it from you. Because it was never just about what you had. It was always about who you became in the process. If you've made it this far, let's pause for a second. Not to rush into the next strategy or the next mindset shift, but to actually sit with what's been revealed. Because this journey we've walked through together, it's not just about money. It never was. It's about your relationship with yourself. And the truth is, most money problems don't start in your wallet. They start in your head, in your heart, in your nervous system. You've probably heard 1,000 voices telling you to get your money up, work harder, chase the bag. But here's the part they leave out. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you deserve. And if deep down you still believe you're only worthy of barely getting by, of scraping together enough, of living in stress, then no income increase, no business win, no bonus will feel like enough. Because the thermostat inside you is still set to survival. And I know, maybe that stings a little, but let it sit. Because there's no shame in where you've been. There's just truth. And with truth comes the power to shift. So the real question isn't, how do I make more? It's, am I ready to become someone who holds more without running, without sabotaging, without shrinking? That's the work most people avoid, because it's quieter than the hustle. It asks for stillness, honesty, reflection, and sometimes it asks you to grieve the version of yourself that had to struggle just to feel safe. But if this hit you in any way, if something cracked open while you were listening, maybe it's time to unlearn a few things. Maybe it's time to stop chasing money with a thermostat set to lack. Maybe it's time to stop proving yourself to people who were never supposed to define your worth. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to build wealth from the inside out. Because here's what I know. Being broke is temporary. Staying broke? That's a mindset. And you're not stuck because you're lazy or incapable or unworthy. You're stuck because you were trained to believe small was safe. That struggle was noble. That success was suspicious. That money came with guilt. But none of that has to be your story anymore. You can choose a new story. You can set a new temperature. You can build a relationship with money that actually supports your peace instead of stealing it. You've already started. Just by being here, just by listening deeper than usual. So don't rush past this moment. Breathe it in. Let it land. Then ask yourself, what if I stopped trying to earn worthiness and then started living like I already have it? That shift? That's the beginning of everything. And if you're ready for more of this kind of transformation, not just surface tips, but real emotional rewiring, then hit subscribe. Stay close. I'll be right here helping you shift that mindset. One thought at a time. Because real wealth? It's not found in the numbers. It's found in who you become on the way to them.